welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader. I have nothing else to say.
Yep, we are in September, school's back in, everyone's had their summer freedom crushed, and I would say I'm laughing at them, but unfortunately I kind of work in the educational system, so back in I go.
And in the meantime, here I am buried under a research paper. The usual.
Yeah, fun. Anyway, time to get out of that depressing cul-de-sac. The point is, we're here recording a podcast, so to celebrate the start of this new term, we go straight into Q&A! Which is admittedly what we do at the start of every podcast, but never mind. This is a section where we answer 6 of the questions sent to us by our listeners. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave it in the comments, send it to me via PMs, or tweet me at the Jonin Monkey with the hashtag MBQuestion.
Our first question comes from Vice of Legends.
What are the best and worst educational video games you've ever played?
I don't know, because the last time I played an educational game I was 8.
Yeah, fair enough. Honestly, I'm going to have a hard time thinking of what the worst educational was, but bizarrely enough, I can name the best one. The Logical Journey of the Zumbinis.
Oh my god, that was the one I remembered.
Oh, thank God, I thought it was just me.
There are days, even at 22 years old, where, sadly, I really wish I'd kept that game.
Yeah, same here. I actually thought about doing a talk through or let's play of that game, but unfortunately I searched for the old drawers, but I couldn't find the discs. I could find Lego Island and, for some reason, Theme Hospital, but not the Zumbini disc.
Yep, that sounds like my experience. And it's funny, because I swear the one thing that I remember the most about that game, aside from the unreasonably difficult puzzles at times, is the incredibly hammy narrator.
Oddly enough, I completely forgot about the narrator. I only remember bits and pieces of the game, but I do remember whenever you completed the level, there was that weird cheer of, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah," which they always did right at the end of every level, which me and my sister just found totally adorable.
Yep, that sounds about right. I remember that too.
For those of you who are completely lost, the Logical Journey of the Zumbinis, the premise was sort of like Lemons in that you had a large number of creatures that were very easy to kill. You could customize their appearance with a selection of random options and give all of them different names. And the object was to get through 5 logic puzzles and make it to the Promised Land, which was basically like an open field of monuments that the Zumbinis could wander around.
And let me just interrupt by saying that it's really funny that Logical Journey of the Zumbinis, of all things, mirrors Doctor Who 18 years in advance.
Indeed, or at least the way Moffat's taking it at the moment, but regardless.
Which I know doesn't sound like a vote of confidence, but bear with us.
Yeah, see, the thing was, the 5 logic puzzles, they were kind of typical math problems, so trying to find a safe way to move around a grid, trying to find the best combination of pizza toppings to feed to these rock monsters. It makes sense in context, I assure you.
Honestly, it especially makes for a children's game, which, yeah, people usually don't put all that much thought into.
Yeah, fair enough. And basically, every time you got a puzzle wrong, one of the Zumbinis died. So it was basically trying to solve the puzzles with the least amount of failure.
It was harder than it sounded. Oh, it was way harder than it sounded, especially whenever you hit that damn Bayou level.
Oh god, I completely forgot about that one.
Oh, Frogger mixed with puzzle games.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it had a lot of effort and charm put into it, considering that, like you said, it was an educational game for kids at the time.
Yeah, and it was also produced in 1996, which is an accomplishment in and of itself because, you know, old school video games that were not in any way mainstream.
Indeed, I think the first time I experienced it was, I'm now going to show how old I really am in a kind of depressing way. It was around the advent of computers. And just to give you an idea of how far back this is, in the same year we actually had a specialist come in and demonstrate to us how to use Microsoft Paint. That was how mind-blowing this whole thing.
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember those years. The years of gigantic, bulky computers and the old Packard Bell.
Yeah. I know, no, it's just, I remember as a kid just being so amazed by the fact that, wow, it fills in the colour in one click.
Now 18 years later, we're not even all that impressed by handmade Fire Emblem sprites.
Indeed. But yeah, back in those days, I believe whenever we were good, people were allowed to go outside and play Zumbinis for a bit. And that's partially why, again, it's been ages since I played the game. I'm still debating whether or not I should hunt down a copy and play it again, even if it's only for 5 minutes, just to relive that, but...
Well, hey, if it helps any, it's one of the few games your computer can play.
It's funny because it's soul-shatteringly true. Anyway. But yeah, I don't know what it is about it. It's just that game is so entrenched in my childhood now. It's like, part of me wants to go back and play it again just to rekindle all those memories, but I'm also afraid that, like many other things, I'm going to play it and find out, you know what, this is crap.
Yeah, I understand that fear, but honestly, even at 22, I think going back would be worth it, if just to hear that hammy narrator again, because I swear that narrator was enough of a part of my childhood that may be where I got my ham from.
Fair enough. As for worst, like I said, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, me either, really, because surprisingly, I got a bit lucky and I never really played an educational game that was just crap.
Yeah, I think to be honest, we avoided most of those games like the plague. Like I said, the only reason we picked up Zumbinis at all was that it was in our school. But that said, me and my sister begged our parents to buy it for our own computer at home, so I guess we as children must have thought it was worth something.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because the same thing happened to me, except it wasn't at school. I would literally go to our city library, which was about as up-to-date then as it is now.
Oh dear.
I would go to our city library just to schedule time to play Zumbinis.
Aww.
To the point that whenever we got our new computer in, 2000? I practically begged my parents for Zumbinis.
Ah, such good memories of you, but yeah, like I said, we avoided the crap, but Zumbinis will always be the best educational game in our hearts. I don't think anything else can top it at this stage.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Moving on to Vice of Legend's second question for this month. He asked us,
have you ever thought about doing a live stream with Twitch?
Simply put, no, because I don't think my internet connection could stand up to streaming. Also, I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, even if we put aside the whole technological issues, in our current case, I don't think my computer or my internet connection are nearly up to it, like Sven said, but even putting aside that, I'm not sure what it is I would do exactly. I mean, I have briefly considered doing it maybe for like a charity event, but at the same time, I don't really think improv works that well. I mean, yeah, technically what me and Sven are doing right now is unscripted, and it sounds pretty good, but the main reason for that is that I've gone over the whole thing with a fine-tooth comb with editing. Just from answering the last question, not only have I stuttered about 6 times, I've had to restart the sentence, we actually derailed it because we couldn't remember how to structure a sentence for a joke.
Yeah. So, everything we do here involves copious amounts of editing.
Yeah, if we went that live without any editing, God, it would be a painful experience. Trust me, you do not want to hear me stuttering over myself, Sven forgetting where he was halfway through and having to redo a sentence. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, and trust me, you don't hear it because of editing, but that happens a lot more than it sounds.
Indeed, indeed. So, yeah, it's something I may do in the future, but I would have to think long and hard about what to do with it, because Q&As we already do. Even though I have the technology to stream a game, I tend to find out that when I try to do improv Let's Plays, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's usually just vague comments about what's going on, which, yeah, that's not entertaining for anyone. I mean, if you've seen my Let's Play of Street Fighter, you know that the best parts of that were my reactions, not the intended comments.
Yeah. And, yeah, I have the same problem. I just don't think like that. I don't think on my feet that quickly. I have to plan every single story I ever write out to the letter to get anything worthwhile done. And that applies to commentary, too. Also, I'm not sure there would even be a point in doing a live stream, because even though we have 150 subscribers, we get 7 views per video.
Well, not 7 views, like, per... Well, okay, some of them only get 7 views, but there are some that get at least 50.
That's one hell of a milestone, Jonin.
But yeah, I'd probably consider it in the future, but I'd have to think really long and hard about it. In the meantime, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, if I'm brutally honest.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. Our next question comes from Roy Havenstone.
Are you concerned about the Pokemon canon being retconned by the Origins anime and the Ruby and Sapphire remakes, where Mega Evolution has been added in despite originally being exclusive to the Kalos mythos?
Honestly, not that much. I mean, I can see why it might annoy some people that we go back and add such like an incredible bit of technology, but at the same time, it's happened multiple times before. I mean, in the remakes already, we've gone back and added in gameplay elements like the Pokemon powers and the fairy type. That's already a massive retcon that's been introduced.
Yeah, considering that they've retconned Pokemon all the way back to the first generation to be fairy types.
Yeah, that's the confusing part. Like, oh, Clefairy suddenly remembers the dragon attack won't hurt it. I don't know.
That would have been super convenient 16 years ago.
Yeah, I can kind of see why it annoys some people. Let me put it this way. I do like continuity in stories, and I also don't want any story inconsistencies to be just waved away as, oh, gameplay, it happens. But sometimes you do have to accept it, because there's just no way to get around it. They are creating these remakes, but Mega Evolutions have become very popular. People are clamoring for more of them, and they make a great marketing tool. I mean, I swear, the entire marketing of this game has just been, here's the latest Mega Evolution! Here's the latest Mega Evolution! It's another Mega Evolution! And maybe one screenshot of a new model design.
Which is kind of disappointing, actually.
So yeah, I guess in that way Mega Evolutions do kind of get annoyed.
Yeah, because they're kind of overtaking what I came into the remakes for, but that's beside the point.
So, yeah, I guess you could say it's mildly annoying, but I can live with it in the long run, because I'm just happy these games are being made, because I do think the third generation is one of the most underrated ones.
Yeah, and it's always been one of my favorites, too. And also, as far as continuity goes, I look at it like this. At least Game Freak didn't retcon as much as DC. There are worse ways to retcon, trust me.
Indeed. Plus, Pokemon continuity is kind of askew anyway, not just for the gameplay updates, but also for the fact that, I mean, I know Gold takes place after Red and Blue, and obviously Black and White 2 takes place after Black and White, but unless it's an actual sequel, it's really hard to tell whether or not, like, is Ruby and Sapphire at the same time as Gold and Silver, or at a completely different time, you know. I mean, it's either that or they throw in the time travel plot, I don't know.
Ooh.
Or maybe Kalos takes place in the past. No, now I'm just desperately stretching for it. I'm sure someone's gonna have a field day. I know there are some fans who just love reworking explanations into this kind of thing.
Oh, I don't know why, but suddenly in my head I can't stop thinking of Lysander, progenitor of all crappy Pokemon villains.
Indeed. Also, one thing about this Mega Evolutions, I know this is going to sound bizarre, but I would actually like it if there were more trainers who could use it, because I never liked that it only works for you and maybe 3 other people if you're lucky, because it just felt like, well, I have a gigantic win the battle now button that no one else does. It kind of feels ridiculously overpowered.
Yeah, and also it's a bit silly that they play up Mega Evolution as some ancient anime art.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, I guess what we're saying is, we don't mind Mega Evolution being retconned in, we just like it to be handled a little better in general.
Yeah, that's basically all we're saying.
Because right now it's overtaking the marketing and basically overpowering the entire competition, honestly.
And being handled in a really, really silly manner. Because I swear the way they introduced Mega Evolution as some ancient forgotten art in Kalos just reminded me of shonen anime.
And we have a second question from Roy Haywoodstone this month, which goes like this.
Jonin, your show contests the idea that stories should be treated as an optional accessory in games. But what about when the opposite is true? When developers treat gameplay as such? Do they also miss the benefit that this interactive medium can bring to storytelling?
And an example he gives is, during an interview for The Order 1886, the game's director said, I think the story and visuals for this game are the high priority. Gameplay is something that, it's a game. We make games, we can't get around it.
That's a good one. Because honestly, it annoys me magnitudes more whenever they ignore the story, but I guess if you forsake gameplay, there's a problem, because then you're just asking the question, why did you not just make a movie?
Yeah, that is exactly it. The way I see it is that I don't think every game needs massive interaction options, but at the same time, you can't completely ignore the gameplay, because, to be blunt, that's the way your audience is experiencing the story. You know, if you're going to hamper the gameplay and make it even like so tedious or barely there, then frankly, you're hampering your audience's engagement with it. I mean, I've recently played a couple of independent games recently, which had interesting stories, but the gameplay was just so tedious. You're in first-person view, and you're pushing buttons the entire time. That's the full extent of it.
Yeah, and that's my main complaint about indie games, too. I like good stories, but these things are just damn pretentious.
I mean, it kind of works in some cases like the Stanley Parable, which is mainly making fun of it, but there are times when, honestly, it's kind of the reason why I kind of stopped using that intro after a while and just simply went with, I like video game stories, this is why I review it, because I kind of realized after a while that you can't really separate story from gameplay design, because if you get it right, the two of them are so intertwined, they affect each other. Like, pacing can be affected by level design. One section can be perfectly reasonable in story length, but in terms of gameplay length, it's a long, massive slog.
Yeah. So, honestly, you really can't review them separately. It's very difficult to do so.
Whilst I'm not saying you have to use interactivity and generate option after option after option, I would say that if you're going to have a very linear story, then you do need to create some platform for the audience to experience your story, which is why you have to focus on the gameplay. Otherwise, it's the equivalent of handing someone a book that is full of yellow pages and white text. Even if the story is good, no one wants to read that. They can't read it.
That is a very good way of putting it. I really can't improve on that. Our next question, well, comes from Toon Junkie 1.
If you saw a time machine parked next to your house, would you steal it?
Would you, Sven?
Sure, why not? I'll become Doctor Who 100%, give up, and call myself a nerd forever.
Well, part of me would love to have that, obviously, just to see what everything's like, but on the other hand, I have seen so much science fiction to know why time travel is incredibly dangerous. So, oh, let's go back to the past. I've just accidentally killed a guy. Oh, that can't be important. Oh, shoot, he gave birth to Winston Churchill. Crap.
Actually, on second thoughts, I see exactly where you're coming from. It is incredibly easy to accidentally screw up everything.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it will be like Dragon Ball Z, you just create an alternate timeline, you can go back to your timeline with no consequences whatsoever. It's just, I don't know.
just one more snarl in the continuum shift.
Yeah, it's a question it would be so tempting, but then would it be worth the risk?
Yeah, basically.
It's pretty much like asking the question, this could explode. I'd be very happy in knowing how it exploded, but at the same time, I don't want things to explode.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Really? I don't think it was as good as my last metaphor. I peaked too early. Oh, sigh. So, with that ominous note, that brings this Q&A session to an end. Wow, we went through these questions pretty quickly.
Holy crap, we did. Usually we
now I
ramble.
realised why. I've only done 5.
Oh, oops.
Oh, jeez. Right, desperately pick a question at random. Well, the Infinity Zero has a couple of questions, but one's more aimed directly at me, I suspect, and the other two work together as a pair, so I'm going to leave those till next month, but in the meantime, pick another one or two Junkies questions. Let's see, oh god, do I dare ask this question?
Oh god.
Well, I might as well get it out of the way.
Why is Sven the Crusader always naked? Is he a nudist?
This is the first time anyone's informed me of this.
I think he's referring to the fact that your avatar's covered in shadows.
Oh, okay. Let's go with the excuse most people who are use. I'm lazy.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's true, I was too lazy to think of a decent sprite.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and yet for some reason that design stuck.
That design is my avatar on 3 different websites.
I've been thinking about ways to update it, like if you ever go to my channel, there's like a mixture of the monkey avatar I drew way back when and the Jonin sprite, but I've never known which direction to take it. I mean, I thought about maybe adding a Game of Thrones bit to it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I've considered ways to update it, but I don't know. So until that time, Toon Junkie, that's my answer. I'm lazy.
Fair enough. So yeah, that brings this Q&A session to an end. And for this month, as always, we welcome more questions. But until then, we now move on to...
Reviews!
As the title implies, this is where we review one bit of media we've experienced. In this case, I've watched a whole bunch of movies recently, and it's been an interesting past few days trying to decide which one I should pick. I did think about doing Scott Pilgrim, but that one I can save mostly for QuickTime events. And then there was Django Unchained, which, on the one hand, it's a Tarantino movie, so there are little bits and pieces to discuss, but, well, I'll cover more of it in the Quickfire review sections, but basically that movie dragged on forever.
And also from my personal experience, my god, that movie's f***ed up.
Yeah, Tarantino has a thing for over-the-top violence, which, don't get me wrong, I have great respect for Tarantino as a director, as a writer. I really love the way that man crafts stories. I just wish he would grow up at times, because the amount of violence and shock moments he throws into each and every movie, it just gets really irritating at times. My personal favourite bit being the fact that, okay, I know video games have taught us recently that as long as you're crouching behind cover, you should be fine from most bullets, but for crying out loud, I don't think a human corpse would be effective cover.
Oh god, yeah. That actually rings true, because I've watched Saving Private Ryan, and let me tell you this. A cow corpse is not effective cover, let alone a human corpse.
Indeed, and it also doesn't help the fact that the guys have basically terrible aim, because they fire about, I think, at least 10 shots into this corpse, even though they are standing up. Both the corpse and Django are lying on the floor. It's not that hard. But yeah, I decided there isn't enough to talk about, so I'm going to talk about now Rurouni Kenshin. And I rambled on for a bit too long in the recording, so in order to prevent the episode being delayed, I'm quickly re-recording the review. Rurouni Kenshin is based on one of my favourite manga, which has the same name. The plot takes place in the Meiji Restoration, the period after the Japanese Civil War that ended the shogun and the samurai. Kenshin, an assassin who went by the name Batosai in the war, has now discarded that lifestyle and is struggling to find ways to protect the weak with his sword without taking another life. He eventually arrives in Tokyo and meets a young dojo master named Karo, who forms a connection with him that is strong enough to convince Kenshin to stay in the city with her. The film covers the first 4 stories of the series, those being the first chapter, Sanosuke's introduction, the Jinyi arc, and the Kanryu arc. It merges all 4 stories together pretty well, save for a few hiccups I'll get into in a moment. Right off the bat, I will say that this film is really well made. The cinematography is good, the music is good, the action is good, and I also give special props to the costume design. Everyone is wearing toned down versions of their manga costumes, so whenever someone appears, you can recognize them as the characters they're playing, but it never crosses the line into looking like a bad cosplay. It hits a really nice balance between recognizable and natural. But whilst it does get most of these elements right, the film is going to live and die on how well it adapts the story. As you may have gathered from my summary earlier, there is a lot to cram into this story, not helped by the fact that the film feels the need to add Saito and refer to some of Kenshin's backstory as Batosai, meaning that the film runs a massive risk of being overstuffed. Like I said though, 9 times out of 10 it manages to get away with it, mainly thanks to wise editing, like having Jinyi be the one working for Kanryu instead of the more outlandish ninja group Kanryu had in the original. I will also praise it for one original scene that was never in the manga, but I wish it was. You see, Kenshin's weapon of choice is a reverse sword, which is basically a normal katana, but the sharp edge and the blunt edge are swapped round, so that Kenshin can still use his fighting techniques, but is striking people with a blunt sword, so that he knocks his opponent out rather than killing them. However, in the film, Kenshin and Saito get into a duel, and Saito exploits that blade's weakness in order to try and convince Kenshin to be an assassin again, namely by locking their swords and pushing down hard so that the sharp edge on the back of Kenshin's sword starts digging into his shoulder and causing it to bleed open. However, even with Saito's taunts to become the assassin, in a brilliant piece of visual storytelling, Kenshin just sits there, blade digging into his shoulder going, "No more. No more killing." This is a great piece of cinematography that sums up everything about Kenshin's character. He is fully aware of the pain and suffering that comes with his lifestyle, in repentance for his past crimes, in his new desire to protect the people. He will happily bear any weight. He will always bear the painful scars, and continue to fight. Unfortunately, for every great scene like that, I can point to many other scenes that ultimately end up weaker because they've had to cut out several important elements to save time. And I know that I shouldn't be expecting a film to be exactly like the manga and that it has to stand on its own. Problem is, it can't stand up on its own. The film is filled with nods and winks to fans of the original manga, to the point where it has characters like Sanosuke and Yahiko. Sanosuke, whilst getting some impressive fights, has his compelling backstory about being a jaded revolutionary completely removed, so he's just a random brawler with a heart of gold. And Yahiko, well, allow me to play this clip from the original recording, which not only covers Yahiko, but also another silly element of the film. And then there's Yahiko, who seems to be included just to show A, that Karo has a student, and B, that we can do a live-action version of Yahiko. Otherwise, he is pointless. He doesn't contribute a damn thing to this story, apart from one moment when everyone's going, "Oh, hello, Saito. Why are you in this mansion, even though this is a completely private raid? We are doing it on our own personal time without informing anyone." "Oh, Yahiko called the police." "Oh, that's good."
Oh, God. Poor dude.
Yeah, his main contribution happens off-screen. That's how...
Oh, God. That's kind of bad.
Yeah, so they seem to be included just for the sake of, oh, here's a character, but my favourite moment of this, which makes no sense in a standalone version. Enten's clothes are bloody from the previous duel with Saito that I mentioned, so Karo takes him to her dojo, cleans it up and says, "Here are my father's clothes. They might be a bit baggy for you, but they should be a good fit." And he puts on the clothes and steps outside. Now, her father's clothes are in fact the outfit Kenshin wears throughout most of the series, which would be a nice little touch, and normally I'll just say, "Oh, that's kind of clever," and then just forget about it. But after he changes into that outfit, there is a shot which, I kid you not, goes on for about 20 seconds, where he steps outside in his new outfit, basks in the sunlight, and then there's this swelling bit of music playing, which, again, if you were just watching this as a standalone film, would be utterly pointless. The only reason it's there is a massive moment of fan service, and almost so that I was wishing that the music would have just gone, "He now has the clothes, you can geek out now."
Oh god, I'm just imagining this scene and it seems so utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like it's waiting for applause, and it's just making, look, you changed outfit, it's not worth this much amount. We get it, you can just have him walking into the scene normally. We'd get it, we'd understand it, it would be a nice touch, right?
It struck me way funnier than I thought it would.
I was practicing, could you tell? Anyway. So yeah, the film can't make up its mind whether it wants to be a standalone story or a movie for the fans, and ends up being a little messy as a result. That said, it is still an entertaining film I can recommend to fans of the original Kenshin manga, and I had a lot more fun with this than the anime, which, to be blunt, I can't stand. And I'm looking forward to the sequel that, at the time of recording, has already been released in Japan. Mainly because it's based on one story arc only, so hopefully the problems that exist in this movie won't be quite as bad in the next one. So yeah, it's a flawed but fun movie. And now back to the original recording. So, Sven, what are you reviewing this month?
Well, after some consideration and considering the surprising mileage I got out of Homestuck the first time around, I've decided to go with something more story-based again. Except this time, it is regrettably not nearly of comparable quality to Homestuck. The Walking Dead game Season 2. Now, let me provide some backstory for those of you who are watching who aren't familiar with the Walking Dead series. I'll leave the rest of the franchise aside and just say that The Walking Dead's first season, the first season of the video game, was one of the most acclaimed video game storylines perhaps ever written. And for good reason, I think. It is very difficult to argue that The Walking Dead, that for what problems it did have, The Walking Dead's first season was a very good story.
Yeah, I would agree with that, even though my only experience of it so far has been a Let's Play of it, but yeah, I would agree with that. It is a really good story for what it is.
Yeah, and actually, I can agree with that despite being in the same position as you. I've only watched Let's Plays of it, but that's really all you need to do. You can watch Let's Plays of it and decide how you want the game to end, because it is all about the story. Funny how we segued straight back into gameplay and story again. But basically, it is very difficult to argue that even for what flaws it does have, and some spectacularly annoying characters at times, The Walking Dead's first season was a shining example of video game storytelling. Then they switched writers from Sean Vanneman to Nick Brecken, or as I like to call him, Monkey who should have never been allowed near a pen.
Wow.
See, the second season of The Walking Dead starts off deceptively well. The first episode, yeah, it's stock quality, it's really nothing special, it serves the same purpose as the first episode of the first season, and that is to introduce the new plot with Clementine as the main character. The second episode is bizarrely perhaps the most quality episode of the entire series, building an incredible sense of suspense while developing the characters well. Then episode 3 happens. And just to get the positives out of the way before I get into this, I will say this much. Clementine is an amazing main character, 1, and 2, I think I may very well be one of the only people who like the entirety of the new cast of characters. Which makes it all the more disappointing what happens to them. See, in Season 1, yeah, it was The Walking Dead. It killed characters off basically the same way that Game of Thrones kills characters off. But at the very least, you could expect some sense of purpose from it, that it was driving the plot forward. But good God, if The Walking Dead Season 2 is a pointless death central.
I was about to say, this isn't another Red Wedding scenario, is it?
Not exactly Red Wedding, but still bad. And at times, frankly insulting. But before I get into that, I will just say this. That on its own wouldn't have been a 100% deal breaker for me if it weren't for the other problems plaguing the story. Those being the bafflingly bad logic employed by otherwise intelligent characters at times, and the atrociously bad villains. I know that you've complained about the St. John's as being cartoons at one point. Oh, they have nothing on William Carver and his enforcer Troy.
Oh, wait, they are seriously worse than the random cannibals.
Oh yeah. See, I want you to think back to your review of Sword Art Online, and how you ranted about the second season's villain.
Oh god, you mean the guy who was sniffing comatose women's hair in the morning?
Yes. I want you to think back on that guy and the emotions that the creators were trying to manipulate, and apply that to a stock, brutal, sociopathic, post-apocalyptic dictator, and you've got William Carver.
Oh god, they seriously trying the dictator stuff again?
Yes, they are. They seriously tried to cash in on the governor from the Walking Dead TV series, which I don't get because, my god, was he a boring villain.
Well, I'll admit I have no experience with the TV series, but just by going by what happens in Season 1 of the game, they had Crawford, and that society kind of fell apart because the dictatorship just didn't work.
And this is the funny thing. They not only tried the dictator thing, but they tried the social Darwinist dictator thing again. That is Carver's entire ideology. The strong lording over the weak. And not only do they try that idea again, well, you'll see whenever I talk about how they handle the protagonists. But basically, on top of William Carver being a ripoff of Crawford, almost down to his name, the series writers try to manipulate the same emotions that the writers of Sword Art Online did by making him an unrepentant rapist, to the point that his last words are, "I you not, what are you looking at? Don't act like you didn't enjoy every second of it."
Oh, God.
Yeah. He is a one-dimensional cartoon. And so is his main enforcer, but that guy serves so little of a point that I'm not even going to grace him with a mention of his role in the story. Now, the bad logic and the terrible villain would be bad enough. But then Episode 4 happened. And we're not even to the end of the series. Basically, Episode 4 is... You know what? I'm going to go back to your parallel. It is The Walking Dead's answer to Game of Thrones' Red Wedding. Basically, in short, Episode 4 kills off a majority of the new cast, completely without point, completely without resolution of character arcs, and basically completely for shock value. And again, that alone would be bad enough, but there is a distinct underlying mindset to some of the deaths, which is just frankly insulting. What I mean by this is, okay, there are two new characters in The Walking Dead Season 2, who are played up to fill the same archetype that Ben did in the first season. The exception being that they have honest-to-God reasons, ergo disabilities, that prevent them from contributing to the group as much as anyone else would be able to, whereas Ben in Season 1 was a frank coward. Let's not lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
But this is where we return to Crawford. Because both the game and the word of God of the creators after the fact, I shit you not, they confirmed that this was the mindset they were going for in interviews, tries to present leaving these two characters behind to die with no remorse because of their disabilities is the right choice. You know, Crawford's attitude. The attitude that was hammered into us as blatantly evil in the first season.
What?
Yes. They seriously tried to present that attitude as the right thing. They admitted they were looking forward to killing these characters. That is wrong.
What?
That is straight up wrong.
Yeah, I mean, oh god, like in the first season they carried around a guy who had an injured leg and...
Yeah, and went out of their way to find him medicine. And again, in episode 4 of the first season, we are hammered repeatedly with how evil Crawford is. And let me add to that, rightly so. Social Darwinism is not acceptable, and yet here this game is, trying to present it as the preferable choice.
Oh my god, that's just so dumb!
Yeah, it is dumb and frankly insulting and offensive. And I am very difficult to offend, trust me.
Oh, that's just... Oh my god, I can't...
Yeah, there's no other way to put it. The 4th episode is a disaster. And it is beyond disappointing looking at the first season. And it's also beyond disappointing because, like I said, I was one of the few people who liked the new cast. And then they spring this garbage on us, just wipe away the slate clean, and we're left with a confrontation in the final episode that both does not deliver on what the season had been promising, and also leaves a bad taste in your mouth because it ultimately feels like a pointless anticlimax. Well done,
Right.
Walking Dead, this is what you've become.
Wow, that really sounds disappointing, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. It would be terrible even if it wasn't The Walking Dead, but I did not have any inkling of a suspicion that a series like The Walking Dead could stoop so bafflingly low.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I kind of supported myself with the Walking Dead Season 1 by Let's Play, and some people may be saying, well, there's multiple options. Yeah, the problem is the guy Let's Play didn't pick the same options I would most of the time, so... But I'd have deliberately avoided Let's Plays of The Walking Dead Season 2 because I was thinking, well, okay, I ignored that one, but I'll wait until I get a better computer and I can download The Walking Dead through Steam, like get all the episodes and play it that way. But I'm really glad I didn't buy it now.
Yeah, and this is the sad thing. Whenever The Walking Dead Season 2 first came out, I wanted, more than anything, to see that same Let's Player we watched just react to the season and follow blindly along with that. But I looked ahead, and now I want to message Necroscope86 and save him the trouble. And save him the time and effort that he would have to put in to playing this insult of a game.
At the very least, just given the options, do you even have the choice to rescue the disabled kids, or are you just supposed to let them die? Is that...
Well, you have the choice, but it doesn't mean because the game kills them anyway.
Oh, well, that's just great.
I mentioned the Red Wedding, and I meant it. It's like stabbing the pregnant woman and the baby all over again. Sorry, spoilers. But yeah, now that I'm through with the angriest rant I have ever done both on this show and off, I cannot recommend The Walking Dead Season 2 to anyone. It's frustrating because the characters are still good enough that part of me that smugly rewrites series really wants to have a go at this one, but on the other hand, like I said, it is intelligence-insultingly bad. I cannot say enough bad things about The Walking Dead Season 2.
Oh god, that's so disappointing to hear that. Like I said, because I'm really looking forward to just seeing Clementine go from the supporting role to the main character, but...
And, yeah, I mean, the thing is, that part is still basically worth it, because like I said, Clementine is a fantastic protagonist. I will give The Walking Dead series that much. Its protagonists are great. Its characters are great. But the way they are handled, I could have done without. I could have done my entire life without.
Yeah. Oh god.
So moving swiftly on from that.
Yeah, let's, I think. There is no way we can gracefully transition from this, so I'm going to do it as harshly as possible. Let's be bright and cheerful as we move into...
Quickfire reviews!
Oh, thank God. I have had that rant building in me since July.
And now it's all finally out. But yeah, this is the section where we review anything else we've read, watched or played, but within a maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Do you have anything, Sven, or are you drained after The Walking Dead?
Actually, I do have a semi-positive thing, surprisingly enough. Even though I'm only part of the way through it, I'm already enjoying it, so I guess I'll include that.
Okie doke then, so I guess I'll go first and then switch back to you then, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first of all...
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. A pretty enjoyable movie overall, I got to say. The action sequences were fun, and I do actually like the way they included the video game visuals and the way they incorporated stuff like schools. The only problem I have of it is that sometimes the world logic is really confusing, and Scott himself can be a pretty annoying character at times. But either way, it's still a fun romp, and I recommend it, and it also once again proves that Edgar Wright is a brilliant comedy director, and I really wish he would get more work.
I'll then move on to...
Django Unchained, the latest film from Quentin Tarantino, the filmmaker superstar. It's a pretty good movie overall, and considering the subject matter, i.e. the hideous stuff slaves went through, this is one of the few times where Tarantino's shock and violent style of filmmaking does actually work for the most part. Although, that said, the plot is very simple but dragged out for about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and by the end it just gives up any pretense of being a serious action film, and then has stupid stuff like, I kid you not, Jamie Foxx's horse doing dance moves.
What?
Yeah, they played it serious throughout the rest of the movie, and then right at the very end, they have this entire sequence where Django blows up a manor and then just stands there like a couple of inches away from it as it explodes, turns around with his sunglasses and a cigar in his mouth, and then gets onto his horse, and instead of riding away, has him do these complex dance moves. It's just...
Oh God, I forgot that happened. Oh God, after The Walking Dead, I needed that ridiculousness.
Yeah. But yeah, in short, good movie, but kind of flawed. Passing the ball over to Sven now.
Star Wars Empire and Rebellion Razor's Edge, one of, frankly, countless Star books in the Star Wars mythos. I haven't really gotten that far into it yet, but honestly, just seeing Leia and Han snark at one another in text form is worth the ride. I am eagerly looking forward to finishing the book.
But hey, I'll definitely need to pick that up at some point.
And let me just add on to that by saying I am not 30 pages into this book, and it's already better than The Phantom Menace.
Well, that's not hard. Anyway,
that is not a high bar.
And my final review.
The latest chapters of Naruto. For the love of God, just let it end. Stop having villains popping out at the last minute. Any kind of emotional impact you could have had for this finale was lost about the time you summoned a bunny demon from nowhere. Let it end. Let the damn series end.
You used the bomb. Damn you all to hell. Actually, just to follow on from that, I'm going to do one last review that will give whole new meaning to Quickfire.
The latest chapters of Bleach. Tite Kubo, do you have a boner for overpowered villains? That's it, basically.
it's probably best I don't ask. And with that really awkward note, that brings us to the end of this month's podcast. As usual, if you want to keep up with the news on video progress and what I'm watching or playing, then follow me on Twitter at the Jonin Monkey. But until the next podcast, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader, officially drained after giving myself about 5 years worth of rest.
That was Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel that you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright has been misused, please PM me and I'll try and get round to fixing it as soon as possible. We also welcome any comments, be it feedback or your own viewpoints on any of the things we've discussed. Until next month, have fun kids!